I wanted to show you a couple of verses
Mm-hmm.
that is just sort of just a bit fun.
Okay.
Like sometimes we spend too much time at like, ew, this Quranic verse is
Sure.
disgusting.
Sure.
This is like, ew, evil, pure evil, like horrible, right? But sometimes there's some Quranic verses that are just like a little lighter, a little bit. We could
Yeah.
just,
Silly.
just silly, yeah, just some pure silliness, and we could just sit back and we don't have to, analyze it that deeply and just enjoy. And this one I think is a good one for us to do that. This is Surah Nisa. I mean, chapter 37, verse 6, all the way to, let me see how far it goes, to 10, 6 to 10. The sky, according to Islam, has 7 layers, right? 7 layers.
Okay.
And it seems like the Quran thinks that the stars are closer to us than the sun, right?
Like they're in
So
another layer.
Yes, the layer
sun
that the
is.
stars are in
Okay.
are closer to us than the layer that the sun is in. So now let's go to these verses, right? So this is Quran chapter 37, verse 6. It says, "We have adorned the lowest heaven with stars." So when it says lowest heaven, now you understand what it means, what lowest heavens means. It means the lowest skies. So now the stars are closer to us than other things, other celestial objects in the sky. So which is completely the opposite of what we understand. The stars are very far away,
Right.
and the sun and moon are a lot closer to us than stars, right?
And
but
the sun's also a
Quran,
star.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly, right. But not according to the Quran,
No.
obviously, right? So we have adorned the lowest heavens with the stars and made them safeguard against every rebellious devil. So what does this mean? Yes, the stars have, basically what Allah is saying is that the stars have 2 functions,
Okay.
2 that we know. Apparently they have other functions as well, like some of them cause dreams, some of them have some forces.
What?
But 2 of the forces that we understand that the stars have is, one of them is that they make the sky pretty, right? And the other one is that they're kind of like a weapon against rebellious devils, right? So how does that work, right? So why are the stars are kind of like a weapon against a rebellious devil, right? So they cannot eavesdrop on the higher assembly pelted from every side, right?
They're
So
throwing stars at the devils so that they don't
yeah,
hear the secret plans of Allah. Huh.
of angels, not Allah,
Oh.
right?
Wow.
Because this is not, because the heaven, the heaven, these are skies. These are not this. I know it's referring to them as heaven, but
Yeah.
the actual heaven that you go to when you die is above all these 7 skies,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So
But
that is another place.
the sky
So
that's
we have,
lowest to us is where
right,
there are stars and apparently devils, and then in the
right.
sky above that there's angels?
This the angels are at the highest sky, so the level 7. The
Wow, so
angels,
the devils are really
yes,
close to us then, because they would have to be below
yes.
that.
Yes, they're far off. They can't, like,
Wow.
the devils are far, far away from where the angels are having secret. So the angels are having secret meetings in sky level 7, and the devils are trying to go there to try to understand what these angels are saying, but they can't even make it to sky number 1 because
This is
because
this is clearly, when you say it like that, it's just like, this is clearly somebody pitching some like Ocean's 14 style movie or something, like, guys, we got to
right,
steal the gym, but we got to get to sky level 7, It's like, oh no, they've
right.
got bodyguards. We got to watch out. Like, it's just, this is ridiculous. Okay. Okay. So I'm with you now. I'm here following along.
Right, right. So what are these? So they cannot eavesdrop on the higher assembly pelted from every side, right? So what is this? What does that mean? This is talking about shooting stars, right?
Sure.
shooting stars.
Okay. Sure.
So what the Quran is trying to suggest is that
Uh-huh.
shooting star, whenever you see a shooting star in the sky, that was a devil or some devils trying to reach the highest assembly, like sky number 7,
Mm-hmm.
and God was like, no. And this a shooting star is God going pew 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 pew,
That's
right?
so
At the
dumb.
devils.
That's so dumb.
Yeah, right? So it's basically guarding the heavens,
It's
the highest
God.
heaven from the devils.
He can do anything he wants. Why is he shooting spitballs at devils? Like, why is he doing this?
I
Like,
mean,
just
because it's cool. Is it not cool to go
I
pew pew pew?
can't.
Is it not? Is it not? Is it not? Is that not cooler
It's
to do
just no,
that?
it
Put that
makes your
on?
god look stupid. Like, who wants a god that just throws darts at the enemy every so often? Like, why don't you just eradicate this thing already? It's horrible. Like, you hate it. They're always trying to mess with your plans. Like, oh my god.
I mean, because there's hikmah. There's hikmah in everything. You don't understand.
You
Hikmah
know
means
what? I
wisdom.
don't.
So this is what, yeah. So this is actually the standard answer when you ask, like, but when you go like this to Islam, okay, you're like, but why, right? The answer is hikmah, and
Mm,
hikmah means it's wisdom. It's God's wisdom, and
yeah,
that means
sure.
like that basically translate to shut the up. That's what that means.
The Christians also have a shitty answer like that.
Right,
We
right.
just call it
That
mysterious ways.
right. That's basically just saying because, just
Gosh.
because, right?
Okay.
Right.
All right. I'm
And
I'm with you.
yes, yeah. And then it continues, driven away, they will have perpetual torment. So they are
Okay.
basically shooting, like, yeah. So
That's
these
nice.
devils cannot make it. That's good. Is that? That's not fair. Okay, but okay.
No,
And
it's
then it
not.
says, if any of them stealthily snatches away a fragment, he will be pursued by a piercing flame. All right, so basically, it's just telling you that they will be just chased forever, and they will not be able to.
It's
They're
just
basically
it's just
right.
really strange. Like, I just don't understand. I don't understand why any religious scripture does that, where it just starts going really in depth about something that's just like, this isn't happening anywhere near you or anything. Like, in this heaven way over here or whatever, just want to let you know there's a waterfall of rainbows and unicorns, and this guy's gonna get his head blown off. And it's like, okay, cool. I don't understand it. It doesn't feel
I
like it makes it more credible. It just makes it sound silly.
You say that because your tent doesn't have lamps that shoots at people.
That's
Okay,
my problem.
you're just
That's
jealous. You're just jealous. You're just being jelly
yeah.
here.
I
This is
also
right.
all of my supporting pillars in my tent, Armin, are clearly visible. I don't have any of the magical invisible ones, and yeah, I don't have lamps that are also weapons. I just one day, Armin.
Yeah, maybe then you will stop being such a okay. But but two more points. Okay,
Mhm,
one of them is a minor point, and the other one is the most important point. Okay, because this has there's a history behind this.
mhm.
A minor point is that God thinks shooting stars are stars,
Yeah, yeah, that
right?
seems
So
clear.
we understand that shooting stars are meteors.
Uh
They're
huh.
like they're tiny. They're compared to stars. They're just tiny little rocks,
Yeah,
like relative to stars, right?
yeah,
So I know from a human perspective, that's a bright little thing in the sky, and that's another bright little thing, and that one is not moving, and that one's moving, and that
mhm,
just seems like these things look like each other,
mhm,
and that looks like one of those things but moving, but
mhm,
they are very very different.
mhm.
Okay, one of them is an entire maybe solar system with a sun maybe bigger than ours, okay,
Yeah,
with very very far away from us, and another one is a much smaller object that is very close to home. The fact that Allah thinks that shooting stars are just stars that are being thrown at devils shows that God doesn't have a very basic understanding of any of his own creation, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's one thing. Yeah, yeah.
Clearly, this is not an all-knowing
Right.
God. Also,
No.
like, meteors wouldn't be like if you were going to use a celestial object as a weapon, meteors
Right.
wouldn't actually be that good because the vast majority
It's
of them
going
burn up. They
right.
burn up in
They're
the
just going round and round. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, it just wouldn't
yeah.
be it wouldn't be very effective at all.
Mm,
So
I mean, yeah. I mean, they need to just hit their target while they're still in the
okay,
sky. They
okay,
don't.
I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
see
yeah,
I'm forgetting the other nonsense, which
yeah.
is like, no, no, SR, you gotta remember it's a magical floating thing just somewhere in the
Right.
sky that we're shooting at. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, okay, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
my
yeah,
bad.
yeah. But here's a very interesting other point. Okay, is that so? Here's the thing: Islam makes no sense
Mm,
when you try to take it seriously as a way to describe how the world works.
mhm,
Okay, but it makes a lot of sense when you look at it as something that was trying to accomplish a meme with no centralized planning, just as a way of the survival of the strongest meme,
mhm,
was metaphorically trying to create order in society
mhm,
or to create authority or
mm.
power, right? In that sense, if you look at it, not only it's not ridiculous anymore, it's actually genius.
Yeah, it makes total
Let me
sense.
explain. Yeah, let me make sense. Let me explain. Let me try to make sense of this. Um, that back before Islam came to before well it wasn't Islam back then, back before Abrahamism, Abraham religions, Abrahamic ideology came to Arabia. The Arabs back then had their own religious beliefs and
Mm,
rituals and tradition, and it was closer to what was norm in the world, which was a lot of animism, a lot of
mhm,
spirits, a lot of associating with forces of natures, with demons. Well, not demons, with spirits, with persona personifying different things that happen in nature, right? And what the Arabs back then, just like I don't know, just like the natives in North America, just like the Japanese people and Chinese, the way that they looked at nature was like they saw forces at play, and they kind of saw some spirits with agencies that live among natural forces,
right.
right? And that was traditional Arab belief and rituals, and they call these so-called what we call now spirits, what we understand as spirits in other religions, they call them jinns,
Mhm,
right? Or what in English terms later turned into genie, right? Genie, right? And the reason now we associate jinns with demons, because back then for Arabs, these were not evil things.
right.
These were good. These were things to be respected, right? But because when Islam came, just like when Christianity came, the gods of pagans was associated with devil worship. This is why
Mhm,
in Christianity the devil has horns, because I don't know, because we had Greek gods and stuff had horns and
mhm,
stuff, and that's why it has a what is it, a trident? Is that
yeah.
because the devil has a trident? Because I don't know, Poseidon had a trident and some other people had tridents, right? And
Mhm,
this is what they had. This is why cats are devilish, because in ancient Egypt they worship cats and
mhm,
stuff, right? So this is what. So in the same way, not Islam, when Abrahamic ideology came into Arabia, the old traditional religions had to be demonized, for no pun intended. No pun intended. Yeah, literally demonized. They had to make jinns into what we now
yeah.
closely see closer to devils. But the jinns were so dear among Arabs back then that this could not have been done completely. Like you cannot completely dismiss the jinns. Their position in society were too high for you to
Right.
completely consider all of these as evil, right? So that's why you see in the story of Muhammad, who brings Islamic teaching to Arabs, you could see that some of the very first Muslims were jinns.
Mm,
So it was very few humans accepted the message of Muhammad.
mm,
But Muhammad was like, I have jinns that accept my message. These things that you guys love, they're And apparently, when Muhammad was reciting the Quran, many Jews were like, uh, "But that's beautiful." Oh my! They were touched, and they surrounded Muhammad, and they became Muslim. So this is a way for this teaching to try to capture the Arabs who love these jinns and respect these jinns. They're like, "Oh, the jinns love Muhammad. Okay, but I love these jinns, so I love Muhammad." Right?
Right. Well,
Uh,
I mean, think
so
about it, Armin.
yeah.
If the jinns had been trying to listen in on the angels all this time, now that they finally get a chance to actually hear the
What
Quran, of course they're going to pay attention and love it, right?
I I'm trying to bring it back to
Okay,
this
okay.
whole story
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we
yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that's what you try. Okay, so yeah, I think you're getting the picture here. Okay, so what the early attempts, like now, if you look at just people like, oh, jin's evil, jin's like
Mhm.
demonic and stuff, but the early attempt was to just push jinns down a bit,
Mm,
not to the Quranic verses when they are being told to an audience. We are reading a small part of a bigger story.
mm,
And the Quran is assuming that we know that story. Because the
right.
earlier audience that was listening to these verses, they had a story. The Quran didn't require to tell the entire thing. It doesn't explain much because you guys know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I just have to add a little bit to it. I don't need to explain the entire story. So that's why the Quran is a mystery box to us, because we have lost a lot of those stories,
Mhm.
and the Quran is talking as if we know the story. Like, what are you talking about? Tell us the entire story. And like, it's not. So through research and a lot of scholarly work, we now have an understanding of the bigger picture of the story is that the Islamic understanding is that these devils, these jinns, used to have a high position in heaven.
Mm,
That's why they could do so many things. That's why when you did magic, when you relied on the jinns to give you magical powers,
mm,
or to tell you about the future, or to lift a curse, or to curse somebody, when they could do all of these things because they had the secrets of the heavens.
okay.
They didn't have these powers themselves. They
Right.
just were allowed into the assembly of the highest heaven, and because they were allowed access there, they
Okay.
had these powers.
This was
But
before
now
Allah put the stars.
this is before Islam,
Right.
which is weird because I think we had shooting stars before Islam.
I'm not positive on that, Armin. I don't know you have any data, but yeah,
Right,
maybe.
right. But this is God announcing that we have a new way of doing things now.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So these jinns who had such a high position in your faith,
Mm,
they have lost their access now.
mm,
If you want God's favor, you should come to Islam now,
yeah.
because these jinns, they can't do much anymore because they have
Mm-mm.
been kicked out. Just like Iblis, just like the devil was kicked out of heaven, now these jinns are now kicked out of the highest heaven, and they want to go up in the heaven and back to, like, they're so desperate. They're like, oh, give me some of that
Mm,
secret. And every time they try to go, they're like, nope and nope. And now, and yeah, and so now they still remember some of those secrets, by the way,
uh-huh.
right? So that they have some powers. This is why they trick you. So the jinns right now. So this is why sorcery is haram in Islam, because whoever does sorcery is relying on jinns to do sorcery, and jinns
Interesting.
are tricking you. They have a little. They promise you a lot of power, but they just have a few tricks, and
Mm,
whoever is doing sorcery is just doing a little bit of tricks, and it's all just make believe. None of it is real. It's all an illusion. When you see somebody do sorcery, it's this the jinn's way of trying to make you see things that maybe not necessarily happening, because they
mm.
don't have those powers anymore. So you should not rely on sorcery. You should only rely on Islam. That's the teaching here.
That's interesting. That's honest. It is. It's brilliant because it
Yeah.
instead of coming in and saying all the things you thought were BS and fake, what you do is you go, "Hey, all those things you thought, they're actual, they're still real, but they're not as cool as you thought they were. My things, guys."
Right.
Like,
Right. or that things are about to change.
Yeah,
Right? Like
right.
they were true till now, because it's too radical to say like they're all fake.
Right,
Right?
right.
You just say like, yeah, this is all true, but like we're changing things now. Yeah, which it's interesting because Islam did the same thing with the Kaaba and the story of Abraham and Ishmael. Like, instead of completely dismissing these stories,
Yeah.
they're like, let's take that and change
Yeah.
that in a way to make the Arabs God's chosen
Yeah, they
people.
just picked
Right?
our guy
So
instead of your guy, actually. The story
yeah,
happened, it was
yeah,
just our guy.
yeah. I mean, the story happened, and it's interesting because the Bible doesn't mention what happens to Hagar and Ishmael after they are kicked out by Sarah. So the Quran are like, well, there's a gap in the story.
It's
There's
fan
a
fiction.
I can no, that's great. Like, people are like, what how you know how like in Marvel, like something happens and then Marvel comes 10 years or 30 years after, like,
Mhm,
oh, we could pick that
mhm.
story up and turn it into a sequel or a prequel or
Absolutely.
something. The Quran was like, okay, let's pick that story of Ishmael and Hagar and just do a sequel, like just continue that story and bring it all the way to Arabia. Why not? Right?
The Bible
And make
too,
it
the Quran.
right. Yeah. Make the Kaaba built by Abraham, which is merges because the Kaaba was part of the ancient Arabian tradition,
Mhm,
separate from Abrahamic
mhm,
beliefs. And
mhm.
it was such an important part of the tradition. And they're like, how do we, Abrahamism, the Kaaba as the center of worship, how do we put these together? Like, I know, let's say Abraham built the Kaaba, Abraham and Ishmael. So when Hagar and Hagar and Ishmael came all the way to Mecca somehow. They just walked all the way from north and
Yeah,
walked away to
just
the middle of
disregard that
the
part.
desert. And and then one day Abraham was like, "Let me go talk to my son. I haven't seen him for a couple of years, right?" And he just went all the way from up in Syria or whatever, in Israel, and just walked all the way.
Yeah,
I don't
just
know how he find
disregard that part.
Ishmael.
Right.
Yeah, he just walked all the way there, and I'm
Mhm.
like, "Hi, son. Do you want to build? Do you want to build something together, like a father son time?" Ishmael like, "Hey, great. I mean, you kicked us out of your house.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I haven't seen you for years. But if you want to do this with this project together, like a son, a bonding, and
Yeah,
Abraham was like, yeah, sure, let's build the Kaaba. And they
yeah,
built the Kaaba, and Abraham
yeah,
was like, okay, bye.
yeah,
I'm going to go back to
yeah.
continue the Bible adventures that I'm having
Very,
over
very
there,
odd
and
story.
then left.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
and
know
that's
you
how
and
we
your
have
mom
Kaaba.
were slaves, and I kicked you
Right,
out when I got a younger
right,
kid.
right,
But
right,
hope you're down for this whole building. Yeah,
right,
it's weird,
right.
but honest
Yeah,
again, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. They
yeah,
knew there was nothing else out there, so why not
yeah.
pick it up and try to incorporate it into
Right.
their new fashion thing.